Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about one thing and one thing only that has been on everybody's minds. It is the Rocket League Championship Series Winter Major. March 26th, 27th, live event in SoFi at the YouTube Theater. There is going to be 16 teams from all over the world competing for $300,000 and a chance to give them a step ahead for the World Championship spots. We finally have the groups. We have figured out who they are, where they're going to be, who's playing who, and God, it's gonna be tough. We're going to be talking about how the groups were seeded and why today. So not only are we revealing them to you all, but we're also going to kind of break down specifically why things have happened. And there is some that make sense and some others that don't. We're also going to discuss who is possibly the toughest group, who's probably going to come out of the group, and a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, there is a chance that Sandrock Gaming again does not send their full roster. Name a worse duo than Mina and like Schooling, because unfortunately Ahmad may not make it. It's really sad. It feels, if it happens again, I'm gonna be so upset. Like it sucks. Second thing, in my bold take, because of the way that groups and stuff are formulated, I don't think we're gonna see the 12 best teams make it out of groups necessarily, because there is certain teams that are stacked within the same group. You'll know what I'm talking about here in a bit. So with that said, let's transition to the other screen and get into this. So on the left hand side, we've got our winter major groups, and on the right hand side, I've got for you all the way that they are seeded, and we have some things that we can assess from this based upon who gets advantages. Did Sandrock Gaming get a nod? Are their results from the previous major bumped up? Stuff like that. So a couple things to extrapolate from this. First and foremost, your groups. Group A, Team Queso, FaZe Clan, V1, and Detonator. Detonator did win out the APAC qualifier over Tokyo Verde in the grand final. I don't know what that funky jam was, but it was loud. The second thing is there's going to be two groups, like I said, that have 2 NA, and another group, or one group that has 2 NA and another group that has 2 EU. Simply because each group needs to have 1 NA, 1 EU, but because there's 5 teams coming from NA and EU, there is going to be some overlap. So in Group A, you do have 2 NA, and in Group C, you have 2 EU with BDS and EG. So with that said, Group B is Energy, Endpoint, Renegades, and Furia. In Group C, you've got G2, BDS, Team Secret, and EG. And then in Group D, you've got Dignitas, Sandrock Gaming, Pioneers, and Space Station. Already, I can tell some things have changed in the way that groups are weighted. So, with that said, you have your seeds as appropriated underneath me in my spreadsheet. So you have 1, 8, 10, 15, 2, 7, 9, 16, 3, 6, 12, 13, and 4, 5, 11, and 14. So what we're going to do is we are going to take our groups, and I'm going to give you guys and gals the seeds and how they are associated. So Team Queso, number 1 seed. A couple of reasons why. BDS won the major last time. They won the fall split major. Therefore, EU now gets the number 1 overall seed as compared to North America, who won the previous world championship. International competition, the previous majors, all that stuff is very important when it comes to how things are being associated. Fall split major results, international competition results, and then making adjustments for international competition, making sure there's not too much overlap, making sure the groups are a little bit more fair. Argument's sake, you can go either way. The second seed then is NRG, rightfully so. They were the best NA team. They performed second at the overall event. You've got to change the seeding, and this is going to be how it goes. EU1, NA1, probably EU2, NA2. And in this circumstance, they flip it. So NA2, EU2. So you now have G2 Esports and Dignitas. The reason why they're doing this is they're probably going to give advantage to EU somewhere in here, possibly. And they want to make sure that the groups, when they do start to fill out, that you do not have, again, that overlap. They want to make sure that with G2, there's also going to be 2 EU teams to balance it out, just like how in Group A is going to have 2 NA teams to balance it out, because they have to separate them. And then after they get all these filled out, they're probably going to make some adjustments anyway. So number 5 seed which you guys can't see because it's underneath the chat in my camera right now, is then going to be Sandrock Gaming. So you got SRG, which is MENA 1, which is the only MENA team. So why is this done? Why is MENA given a top 5 seed? Couple reasons, in my opinion. Number one is they are, again, trying to manipulate the groups. It'll make more sense when we break down this whole list. But by putting Sandrock here, I think it is partially for the fact that they want to make sure that, one, Sandrock is a top 8 team. They have shown that they are a solid team. But you also got to make sure that the groups are balanced out so certain teams play certain times. Okay? You have your 6th seed, which is Team BDS, which is your EU 3rd seed. You then have Endpoint, which is your EU 4th seed. I talk about how they put 2 NA. Now they're putting 2 EU. So 2 EU at 6 and 7, which means 8 is going to be one step behind, which is now FaZe Clan, which is now your EU or your NA 3rd seed. They're weighting NA heavier here because EU has the number 1 overall. And then they are countering that with 2 of the EU teams above NA 3-4. So it balances out. Okay. We then go into the 9th seed, which is actually Renegades, which I am really happy that Renegades is here because as much as people want to dog on OCE and they've been given 15th seed and this and that, they had both of their teams in the fall split major 1 game away from being top 8. They performed 9-11. They were super close to making it into top 8. So they are being rewarded for it, rightfully so. So that is OCE number 1. At number 10 is then right next to them, which is V1, which is then NA4, which you could argue. NA historically has shown that they are better than OCE. By all means, I would agree. So because of that, rather than OCE getting back-to-back despite their performances, they're going to still give NA the nod. And then when they go to 11, they're going to give it to the other OCE team, which is the Pioneers. Smart move by KCP, dropping the roster, picking up one of the teams potentially able to qualify. Happy to see that this team has been picked up and has been signed. So, again, they are trying to balance out based upon history with international competition, who is going where. So, OCE is split by an NA team because you now have 4 NA teams, and most would argue that top 4 of NA outperform OCE. The 5th could be a potential upset for OCE. That's why they are weighted heavier. And based upon the results in the fall split, they also have shown that they've done pretty well. We then go to our 12th seed, which is Team Secret, which that is the SAM number 1 by just 9 points. Very, very close over in South America. If you guys did not watch that event, I'll be breaking down the minor regions in a video here shortly. It was intense. The last regional 3 for SAM was crazy. Go back and watch it. It was nuts. 13th seed then drops down, and we've got Evil Geniuses, which is our last EU team. And again, because EU outperformed North America, there is a reason why that, especially with the overall number 1 seed, that all EU teams are used first before all the NA teams. Because again, the major regions notoriously have outperformed the minor regions. It's not done to be mean, just the way that it goes. We then go to our 14th seed, which is SSG. After EU5 needs to be NA5. Similar in this regard, same thing. Need to have NA follow EU because EU did outperform NA recently. And with the way that the teams balance, you are still getting both OCE teams that were super close. One SAM team did do better. The other SAM team did not. So this is probably going to be SAM, and then this is going to be APAC, which by golly it is. You actually, though, see the difference here. You are actually giving APAC a nod over SAM 2. SAM 2 is actually the last seed. That is actually pretty surprising. And I'm curious as to why that is. Because if we go back and look at the fall split major, that's what I want to pay attention to. Both ERA, the SAM 2nd seed, and Tokyo Verde went 0-3. They did not win a single series. But ERA did take games off of energy, complexity, and vitality before being eliminated. So because they both go 0-3, the conversation I think you look at here is if you put Furia in Group A That's not good. That's really not good. That is probably the sole reason. If we look at this group and you swap these two and you think about how those balance out, you would have some pretty insane group standings. And I think that's where the manual manipulation comes in. I think when you look at some of these placements and you look at how some of these play out based upon the seeding, I do agree overall with the seeding. Makes sense. EU outperformed NA in the grand finals. You do 2 NA back-to-back because you gave 1 the overall and you're going to balance it out later. You then do EU2 because we have seen, obviously, our top 4 be NA and EU specific. You then have MENA come in because they did show top 8 performance. And if you're looking at top 8 for standings, 5 to 8 is that placement, which means, hey, we're going to give you guys advantage. You made top 8 just like these other teams. We're going to bump you up. It's also going to make some entertainment for the groups. You then have EU come in again back-to-back because you give NA advantage here. So you got to balance it out here. And with them being the overall higher seed, you give them that advantage. And then you immediately remedy it with NA. Now, as soon as you get out of the top 8, which is your first 2 stages, so these 2 in each group, you now need to start consideration of, okay, we are out of top 8. We are now in the teams that are in the Swiss stage 2 and 2. These are teams that in the fall split are in this category, right? These are your 2-2 teams. There's 3 of them. These are 9th, 10th, and 11th place tied. 2 OCE, 1 NA. 2 is greater than 1. OCE shows consistency in that regard. Give them the nod. And they do. To split it up, they put OCE at 9, V1 at 10, the other OCE team at 11. Makes sense. You balance it. Give them a little bit of an advantage. And then put NA in the other side. I think that makes perfect sense. It also balances out the bracket in the group stage really, really well. You then come in with the one region that has shown promise. While they weren't at the 2-3 stage, they were at the 1-3 stage. And that was Furia last time. That performed at the same level of Envy and Vitality at 1-3. That is your seeds where they're tied for 12th, 12 through 14 in round 4 is what it is for qualifications. So they made it to round 4 in the Swiss stage, 1 and 3. These 3 teams were tied, and you do your final bids. Not only do you give Sam a nod because they were in that conversation, you do the worst performing NA and EU team. Still giving EU the nod simply because they are the higher seed. Balance it out with NA, give them advantage. This is the complete opposite of what they did last time. If you guys go look at the fall split seeding, it is the exact same. NA got all these advantages last time, but because EU won this time, they balance it the opposite. And then the one thing that I think they make one final adjustment on. Well, I do think Furia is better than Detonator. Personally, I do think Furia is better than Detonator. I think if they don't switch up the group here, it might lead to some ugliness. It also rewards, I think, number 1 seeds. I think Detonator being a worse team or a lesser team does give advantage to the overall number 1 seed in Queso. I think that's fair. I do think that's fair. I personally look at Group B. Group B is absolutely brutal. Group C, also absolutely brutal. I think Group A, Detonator is fighting an uphill battle, as they should be as one of the low seeds. Group D is also pretty insane. If I'd argue A is the easiest group. And that's not to discredit Detonator by any means, but based upon what we've seen out of that region, Group A is probably the easiest group, honestly. B, C, and D are very rough as a team. If you are a team that is expected to progress and move forward and be the better team, oh man. Again, a couple iterations, and I'm going to pull up these groups full screen now for y'all. For the most part, I'm pretty okay with these groups. I think these look pretty fair, I would say. There is a lot that I have concerns about because there is teams that are in groups that I do think are better, personally, than other teams. And performing first in your group is going to be super important because of the second life, which is going to be more important than ever being that upper bracket now than it ever has been. Even though we've seen teams like Queso, Dig, etc. make lower bracket runs, Energy included. So this is where the excitement of a major comes into play, where every match matters, making sure you close out your series. Everything that comes through, I think, is of large importance. The difficulty, and CCP does say it in chat, is you have to consider the ranking as seeds rather than them just as teams. And while I'm not ranking the teams from top to bottom in who's the best, there is going to be a point where even though a certain team may be better than a team in a different group, and some of those are going to progress, like there is arguments that, okay, maybe V1 isn't better than some of the other teams in some of these groups that are possibly going to get eliminated. You are still trying to compare in the grand scheme of international competition while still providing fairness to everybody as well. It's not like you're just ranking these teams 1 through 16 top to bottom. That's who goes through. So there is going to be upsets. There is going to most likely on Saturday and Sunday for the live event going to be some very one-sided matches. But the exciting thing is that means that potential upsets can be very entertaining, can mean a lot as well. And the best part is there is a chance that certain regions get a very much so a leg up because they have more representation in the final bracket. The spreading of points going back to their regions of who goes to the World Championship, how many spots they're automatically allocated, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot of importance because of this format. So it should make for a very, very exciting thing. If you guys would like me to, in the comments down below for a future video, if you'd like me to do predictions about how you think or how I think this stuff is going to play out, let me know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see a prediction on this based upon what I think is going to happen, who I think is going to progress forward, maybe we'll do the playoff brackets separately or something. But for the most part, this is what I have on the groups. I will also leave a link in the description down below if you guys would like to check out Gibbs. Gibbs has put out a video as well explaining specifically from Psyonix's standpoint as well as his own, because he does help and does consult for them in regards to the seeding stuff on how these things came to be. So if you guys would like me to do prediction on these, let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.